All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Elite Junior Profiles podcast. My name is Lane Hauk, and I'm one of the co-founders of Elite Junior Profiles. And I'm really excited today to have just this new episode and our guest here. But I don't want to steal my partner's thunder in terms of introducing our guest for today. So I'll bring in Coach Paul Peckman, my partner and co-founder in Elite Junior Profiles. How you doing today, Paul?
Doing great, man. Doing great. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, me too. Go ahead and why don't you take it from here and introduce our guest.
Well, today we're fortunate enough to have Kelly Marks with us, who happens to be a two-time Team USA member, three-time varsity field hockey member at SUNY Albany. Is that right, Kelly? Am I right with that?
Yep.
Yeah. And now has just become the head coach of Tatnall Prep School here in Wilmington, Delaware. So we're excited to talk to her about, because we've talked a lot about ice hockey, and now we're going to go switch gears a little bit to field hockey. And I'm excited to hear her background and what got her to the top. And I'm going to turn it over. Kelly, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Well, we're excited.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your path and how you navigated your way to the top.
All right. Yeah. So my path is not your typical USA field hockey path. I mean, there's a pipeline that kids do follow nowadays, starting at the age of under 10, which is ages like 7, 8, 9. They start out and they can start in programs. But for me, I didn't start playing field hockey until 7th, 8th grade, and then got more into it. I decided I was weeding out. Well, my parents were making me weed out other sports. I was a multi-sport athlete. And they're like, well, if you're going to travel with a lot of sports, you need to pick one or two. So by the time I got to high school, I decided I definitely still wanted to play field hockey, and I started playing travel or club field hockey. And then by my junior years, when I decided, I was like, I think I'm going to play field hockey in college. Ended up getting recruited to Old Dominion. I was there for 2 seasons, and then I transferred up to Albany to finish out 3 seasons. Best time of my life. Both places were very different, but very good for me. I learned a lot from both coaches, 2 different very programs. And then after that, after college, I was actually done, and I didn't think I really wanted to play anymore. And I decided I was going to start a family. I ended up having 2 kids in 2 years. And then some friends of mine, I kind of started getting back into playing, and a good friend of mine had actually asked me, she was like, hey, are you going to try out for the national team? And for me, I was like, no, I've been out of this for a little while. Like, it's kind of silly. But then at the end of the day, I was like, what do I have to lose? Might as well just try out and see what happens. And that was in 2016, 17. I tried out for the women's development team, and I got selected, and I played for them for 2 years. And then 2018 came around, and I was asked to come up to the national team as a training player for a little while. And then I got brought on full time and trained for a little over a year. And then this past selection, I didn't get selected, but I got put back down to the development team. So I'm still involved with that, which is great. I still want to play. I don't think I'm done yet. Awesome. But in the meantime, while all that was going on, I was still coaching, and I'd coached at New Canaan for a couple years. Great school. I was the head varsity field hockey coach. And then now, with being done and having some more time, I started coaching at a club here in Pottstown. WC Eagle is a very highly ranked club team, learning a lot there as well as a player and a coach. And that's how I got involved with Tatnall. Is one of the girls there, her mom had reached out to me asking me if I would be interested in a position because it was open, and I was ready for that and ready to get back into that.
Right.
So that's where I'm at now with Tatnall, and I'm super pumped to get this season rolling as soon as we can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What a great story. Nice and quick. I'm sure it was obviously many years of working your way up to that, so you contracted it for us. But maybe give us some of the highlights of the things that you learned, through that journey I mean, you kind of highlighted one of them in that you didn't take the typical approach or typical path, if you will, but what are some of the things that you really take with you or remember from that journey?
From that journey, starting out at ODU, I didn't really know what type of player I was. And I remember going into the summer after my freshman year, and we'd play something called Junior High Performance, which is a part of this USA Field Hockey pipeline. And I was introduced to other players from other schools. We all come together and we play a lot, and different coaches. And I learned a lot about myself as a person and how hard I can push myself and how far I can push myself and the types of things that I am capable of doing, especially for USA Field Hockey. I kind of started a little bit later in the game, not really playing club until I was in high school, where kids are playing club now when they're, like I said, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
See, that I find very interesting because growing up in the hockey world, yes, I mean, guys are starting younger than that, right? But I never hear about any field hockey programs being that young until they get to prep school or high school.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you first realize that there's girls field hockey programs.
Mm-hmm.
At the high school level, you don't hear of the younger programs. Is that normal or?
Yeah, that's still, I mean, the game, I mean, over the last few years, it's been to grow the game, to really reach out and to get kids to join in on the game, especially boys, because over in Europe, field hockey is a huge sport for men. And also trying to get boys involved in the program. And probably since I can remember, around the time that I was graduating high school, it was getting bigger and bigger where kids were starting earlier and earlier. And clubs are more focused on those younger athletes and wanting kids to start before they reach 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade.
Right. Well, I mean, you did take the approach where at 7th, 8th grade, you pick up a stick and then all of a sudden you go to play college.
Yeah, I mean, I only did.
That doesn't happen that often, right?
No, it doesn't. I mean, the only reason I started playing is my neighbor was like, "Hey, you want to play with me?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Sounds like a good thing friends to do together.
Exactly. Yeah. She was like, "Come practice with me in the yard." And I mean, we're still playing in grass at this point. So I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and then I guess, my journey was a little different. I ended up, after my freshman year, I got selected for the under 21 team. Didn't go very far with that. I went out to California for one training session. I mean, I had so many ups and downs of like feeling like I was playing really well, like getting really far, and then I'd kind of get stuck, and then I felt like I was hitting a wall, and then I kind of got over that wall. And, there were just so many times where I felt like I'm done and, it's time for me to throw in the towel, and, there's nothing left for me to give. And every time that happened, for me mentally, I was like, no, that's not it. Like, this isn't it for me. And then I found a huge change in my playing and in my playing style when I started coaching. Because as a player, you're not necessarily thinking about why things are happening and what happens. You kind of just end up being a workhorse. You're kind of told what to do and you just do it. Mm-hmm. And especially coming up, going up in the levels, you need to start actually thinking on your own. And I didn't realize that until I started coaching.
Right. Now you start analyzing certain situations.
Yeah, I had to now, teach kids the game. And I was actually teaching myself the game and understanding why we do certain things. Why are we doing a half court press? Why are we, in this formation? And, how do we transfer the ball with 3 in the back or 4 in the back? There are reasons for the things that we do. And then I also had to go and I teach kids, like, how to push pass and how to hit and how to, those things just came naturally as an athlete. Sometimes you don't understand how to break those things down all the time. And so for me, my game ended up changing drastically, more so when I was out of college and I started coaching.
Sure, that makes sense.
And then that's when I kind of fell in love with coaching and being able to teach these kids things and, to push myself further to be like, what else can I teach them? What else can, I give to them? I would love to bring, the things that I'm doing at the national level to my middle school kids or to my high school kids, and push them as far as they can if that's what they want. And
That's what it's all about, right? Your job now is to help players develop and get to the next level, whatever level that may be. Everybody's different, right? But
Yeah.
that's your job, is taking your experience and your knowledge and pouring it into them. And, every kid is different, right? Their path is different. Their mindset is different. How are you going to relate to them? And that's how you're going to get them to develop.
Absolutely. And
That's
that was a huge thing I had to learn. I mean, like you said, every kid is different. You
right.
can't go in as a coach just treating each kid the same. Obviously, like, you have a certain style, you have expectations, and you have that, but you have to learn how to speak to each kid as well and how to communicate to them. Some kids are going to break down a little bit quicker than others, and others are, like I said, going to be your workhorse and do anything that you tell them to.
Right.
And then there'll be, some kids that, especially in high school, when you're coaching high school, some of them are just doing it because their friends are there. And that's great. And I love that, because those have been some of my favorite teammates on a team. That is what keeps, like, the camaraderie, and it just keeps things lively.
Right.
But you're still teaching them something. And I still, maybe they're not going to play in college. Maybe they're not going to play after high school, but at least they leave the program learning something about themselves, learning something about teamwork, being able to take, lessons that I'm trying to implement for them to learn later in life, like when they go into the workforce. Like, if you're not, one thing that really stuck with me is, if you put out your resume and it's, competing against other people, it's the same thing in sports. You have a set of skills and a set knowledge set going up against other people. That company is going to pick the strongest candidates that it can.
Yeah.
And I try to teach them that. I'm like, because sometimes things can get a little touchy in high school of some parents asking for their kids to play, and some kids just not understanding why they're not playing. And you have to be able to work with that and to say, each spot is deserved, especially when it's a very competitive atmosphere. So for them, I'm like, you apply to a job and you don't get a job. Are you going to call them and say, hey, I should be getting this job? Or, mommy and daddy can't call and say, my child deserves this job. So it's, the amount of work and the effort and what they show me that they want to learn, and, those types of things that I look forward to, of teaching them, like, you need to work hard if there's something that you want.
You got to earn the
Universal
right.
principles of sports. It's just, no matter what sport you're in, when you have a coach like you who's trying to help kids or players develop not only as athletes but as people, that's what you see is you see that transfer of character, and that iterative process that you take a player through as a coach, and you help them actually learn life skills, not only sport specific skills, but those life skills that they'll carry on. And that's, for me as a parent, that's what I hope my kids to get out of sports, right? I mean, the passion to play the game, but the preparation to to play the game of life successfully.
Absolutely.
The life lessons that you learn on the rink or on the field is invaluable. And my father, who played for the German national team, was practicing with the World Cup team and took those lessons that he used in that competitiveness in business, and was very, very successful in business. And we used to have that conversation all the time. It's just, he used to tell me it's the same as sports. You got to be competitive. You're going against other people, and you got to have the will and the drive.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And
Well,
I mean, it's also teaching kids, like, you're going to get knocked down, but you just have to get back up.
right.
You just have to keep going.
I tell my guys all the time, you got to earn the right. You got to earn the right to win. You got to earn the right to succeed. Nobody's going to give you anything. You got to earn it.
Exactly.
What was your path into college with field hockey, Kelly? I mean, talk a little bit about that process, because that, one thing I know is that's a process that no matter what sport somebody's going to, and I'm sure it's a little bit different with field hockey versus other sports, but it can be very confusing. And, for parents and players who are trying to figure out, all right, I want to go to college and I'd like to play my sport in college. Maybe just talk a little bit about, I know you said yours was a little bit of a different path, but talk a little bit about, field hockey and how it translated into college for you, and a little, just maybe some insights into that process that, other listeners might be able to get some insight from.
Absolutely. For me, so I said by my junior year is when I started to realize I want to play field hockey in college. Nowadays, kids are realizing that, their freshman year, and some kids before this last NCAA.
Does it really start that early, or is it just like it's an interest that early? But is there like a real part of the process that starts that early?
It was around, like, kids could verbally commit, I believe, their freshman year to some schools, but they got rid of that.
Okay.
So yeah, so they had changed the rules on that 2 years ago, maybe, or this past year. But for me, so for my journey, I had realized my junior year is when I wanted to go, and so I kind of had to speed up the process.
Sure.
I'm very thankful for my parents who had put out the money, but for me, it was get out in front of coaches as much as I can. It was going to showcases and little skills clinics and going to schools and anywhere in Pennsylvania or the surrounding area I was trying to go to. And then it slowly started to be, the thought process of any kid, I think, that wants to go to college in general, sports or not. Where do you see yourself, or what feels comfortable? Do you want a big school? Do you want a small school? Do you want private school? So there's all these factors that go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I had picked about 8 schools, I believe, and they were all very different. Some in the South, some in the North, some in Pennsylvania. Did I want to stay in state, go out of state? I had no idea, and I didn't know what my potential really was at that point. So
Did you have any help, any guidance?
I started to get some help from my high school coach at the time, and he pretty much kept telling us the same thing. Like, so I was playing for a club. That helps as well, because if you get club is over the winter, so it becomes indoor field hockey, which is different than outdoor. It's very different. It's a smaller game. It's a lot quicker, but a lot of coaches will come and recruit at like the national indoor tournament, and they'll watch you play over the winter, and it's you get to see a lot of skills and a lot of very quick decision making. It's a great sport. So I started to do that a lot my sophomore, junior, and senior year, making sure that I was getting out in front of coaches as much as I could.
Being at the showcases where you knew they were going to be.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then when I started to find schools that I'd like those 8 or 9, I started sending out some letters expressing my interest.
Physical letters, like U.S. mail or email, or both?
It was email. Everything was through email.
Okay.
I would just email a coach, express my interest, give them my GPA, and all of my academics, my SATs, my ACT scores. And then I would inform them of where I would be next, or that I would be attending their skills clinic that they're having over a weekend.
So repeat that information again, because I think it'll be a good lead into Elite Junior Profiles, and then what caught your attention as our our solution came across your radar. So you would send an email. You identified the schools that you really had an interest in. You identified the coaches that were the coaches of the programs. You got their email address, and then you crafted an email that just basically introduced yourself and gave them some of the relevant information that you knew they wanted. Is that right?
Yes. And especially, you have to give your academics. I mean, my high school GPA, my SATs, and my ACTs, if I had them already. And then also I would give them a few maybe accolades that I had earned in high school, or what our team did that season, some awards maybe that I'd won, and then also the club team that I played for. And then if there were any tournaments, showcases, or if they had a skill session over a weekend, that I would let them know that I would be attending or that I would be there.
So you'd send a follow-up email saying, hey, FYI, I'm going to be over here at this showcase this weekend. I'd love to meet you if you're there.
Yep. And I would send them my schedule as well to say, these are the times that I'm playing.
All right. Those are good tips for those people in our audience who will listen to this. Those are really good, just, tactical things to-dos in your list. Once you target your schools, you need to reach out to the coaches, and actually stay in touch with them. Introduce yourself through an introductory email like Kelly was talking about, and then just periodically, as she scheduled the showcases, the events she was going to, letting the coaches know, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be there. I'd love to see you there. Love to meet you there, so on and so forth.
Yep.
You had to be proactive.
Absolutely.
You have to do it all yourself because you're relying on your coach's network, and you don't know how big that is, right? And then after that, you're on your own. So you got to do all that yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you hadn't done that, Kelly, if you hadn't done those things proactively yourself and maybe with the help of your parents, whatever role they played in helping you identify, talk to the schools, whatever, if you hadn't done that, would you have been able to play in college?
I
You think
don't.
they would have found you, you said, like you said, you got started a little bit later. So maybe if you had started earlier, they may have discovered you and your talent because you just had more years, but because you got a little bit a late start to it, do you think they would have found you?
I think for me, I was definitely getting noticed by some schools, but if I wouldn't have reached out to a few, I don't think I would have found the potential of, or the interest of some higher D1 schools or some more competitive Division I schools. Because some D3 and D2 schools were looking at me as well. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. But if I wouldn't have reached out to their schools just to, to say, hey, put my info out there, let them know I'm interested, maybe they'll watch me, I don't know. But if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have realized that I could have played Division I.
That's a great point too, just for people that are listening, is don't sell yourself short, and don't be afraid to dream big and go big, right?
100%.
That's awesome.
So go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to ask Kelly, so how do you feel now you got an idea of elite junior profiles, and how would that have helped you in your process?
When we had talked on the phone a week ago, the one thing that you brought up were those that personality test. What is that? Yeah, I think that is phenomenal. I was telling Paul that someone I know had taken that for work, and it just describes who they are in their natural habitat and then out of their natural habitat, basically. So in their work life and then outside of work life. Coaches in general, not just field hockey, but like I said, I send out an email with all my info that doesn't necessarily always tell a coach much about my personality. I think that this is phenomenal because coaches are always looking for, what a kid can bring to the table, what is their personality like? Where are they going to work hard? And, it was a phenomenal thing where I was like, I wish I had this because, and even as a coach for myself for high school, I would love to know, how each child reacts to certain situations or, what they need in terms of me communicating to them.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a real good in-depth look on who you have and the makeup of your team.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't want 20 goal scorers. You want people to be in certain positions, certain roles. That's what makes championship teams, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to make sure you know who you're looking at. And that's why when we first incorporated it, it's because college coaches are being taught how to use this as a tool. So that's why we incorporated it into our profile. And I think that, you and along with many others, love the idea and see the opportunity. Now it's just about, getting players to get the profile and take the assessment, and you use that as a tool to help them grow and develop.
Because
right?
you could have a player who, may not necessarily stick out as the team leader, but in their profile, they show how smart they are and that they're, they work very well with other people, and that they can be a team player. And, you don't, because you see flashy and you see the people that stick out and you can see that, but you don't always see what's behind some of your other players.
It's not always ability that wins. It's not just talent.
Exactly.
There's a lot more that go into building a championship program and that kind of thing, year in, year out. So that's why we felt this is just, as far as I'm concerned, this is the crown jewel. And our platform is so in depth. Everything that you had to do on your own, we have it all in here and then some. Social media. How important is that? It's pretty important as far as
very important, actually.
Yeah. So
coaches are constantly looking at kids' social media.
And if you're afraid to put it out there and put it in your profile, then there's probably a reason, which is what I've told my boys. You better you better not be afraid to put your, your Instagram profile and your Facebook profile out on your Elite Junior profile for coaches to see. And if you are, then we've got problems. We need to talk about that.
Exactly. I mean, going through college, I've heard stories of kids putting stuff on their Facebook and coaches finding out and it not turning out very well.
Yeah.
Kids get dropped from programs.
I have seen players get 4-year scholarships crossed right off the list, and they didn't even know it because the coach was 3 guys behind them in a hot dog stand. Just on your character and how you act and treat people, that could be the difference of getting a full ride or not.
I 100%
It's
agree.
very important.
Yeah, I listened to one of your other podcasts, and I forget his name. It was just the first one that you did.
RC Light?
Maybe. But he had touched base about how, kids talk to their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is 100% what I look at, whether they realize it or not. Even in high school, I'm a high school coach. I'm not even a college coach recruiting. But for me, like, if I see a way a kid interacts with their parents and it's quite negative, it throws me off. Because then, how does that translate over into the team?
Exactly. They're just going to bring that attitude, that character, that disrespect right into the team dynamic as well.
Exactly. And I've been around, like I said, in a lot of different programs, like 2 completely opposite Division I programs. And I've been in very different high school, and, I've coached middle school, I've coached club, and, my experience isn't even that large compared to a lot of coaches, but seeing a team crumble because of 1 or 2 people and those personalities is pretty heart-wrenching.
Right.
And then seeing a team flourish because you just have a perfect mesh of personalities. It's not even necessarily talent, but just the personalities that can take a team forward.
So, that sounds like a great way to maybe dive a little bit into advice for parents. Is, what we're talking about is, you as a coach, both of you have both just remarked how you look at and you listen to and you watch how a player interacts with their parents. And that can oftentimes affect the decision of whether you want that player on your team or not. But as a parent, what do you do? I think maybe what I'm fishing for, Kelly, is what advice would you have for parents? Obviously, you grew up with parents who raised you well, and that obviously translated in many different ways in your success on the field and off the field. But what advice would you give for parents, in terms of their kids and how their kids talk to them? And, how do you, how have you seen it be successful for parents to be able to teach their kids the right way of talking to adults and teachers, coaches, what have you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that for me, and especially being a parent now, and then also having to deal with parents in like this high school situation and some middle school, but just support your kid, just support them, give them, all the support that they need and the dreams that they want to do. But at the end of the day, that if there's a problem or if there's something that needs to be talked about, I always encourage my girls to come talk to me first before their parents do. If there's something that needs to be taken care of. And I highly encourage parents to let your child grow in that sense, especially when you're working in high school grades 9 to 12. Okay, 9th grade, they're a little young, but they're 14, they're coming into adults, and they're having to grow up, and you have to communicate with people. It's not just texting, it's not calling, you have to talk to people face to face, letting them get comfortable with that. And then also, like some of my older kids that are going to college, again, you have to be able to talk face to face. Mommy and daddy aren't going to save you from everything all the time. And I'm not saying that's every kid, because it's not. Some kids do it naturally and it's phenomenal. But I think as a parent, to encourage that so much more, the communication between the athlete and their coach, or the athlete or the student and their professor, or the employee and their boss. Mm-hmm. Just to encourage that type of communication as much as possible.
And that's a little unnatural for parents, because as a parent, you're so highly vested in the success of your child or children, mm-hmm. Kids as they grow up. I know it's parents are passionate. They want their kids to succeed. They want to see them playing. They want to see them, in the highlight reel, so that's just, that passion is always, you can see it in the stands, when you're watching any kind of game. I don't care if it's a football game, a field hockey game, or a ice hockey game. You see parents and you see the passion, that they have for their kids. But what I hear you saying is parents need to learn how to dial that back to the point where especially when their son or daughter's in high school, they have to dial it back and let them grow up and let them go talk to the parent or the coaches themselves. Let them work through the challenges themselves, not go do it all for them.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, because I'm not saying, don't be passionate for your child. Oh my God, like be passionate. I love it when parents are screaming in the stands. It's a phenomenal feeling that after the game, whether we win or lose, parents are still so supportive. I want them to see their children growing and to find growth and, to feel themselves to be a part of the program, however that may be. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, for me, and I know getting recruited into college, like the athlete also has to talk to that coach. Your parents aren't getting recruited, you are.
Right.
The parent does come along with, and if the parent's going to do all the talking, then what does that say about the child?
Well, you're exactly right. And I'll tell you, going from high school to college, that's the next step in their development, their personal development. And when I get on the phone and I call a player and that kid can't communicate, it's how do you think it's going to translate when you get on the ice?
Yeah.
You can't talk to that kid, and that kid just doesn't know how to be responsible, accountable, whatever you want to say, and just be able to communicate with you. If mommy and daddy are always answering all the questions for them, they've never learned.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to those life lessons. Like you go into work, you have to communicate with colleagues and your boss and, whoever else is around you.
Right.
And it's just trying to enforce that. Like even for me, sometimes like I'll ask my girls, instead of texting me, call me. Because I feel like we kind of lose that a little bit as well.
Yeah. I think where this first flushes itself out is oftentimes in the playing time, dynamic between mom and dad and the player. It's really that first sense, I think, oftentimes that first point of friction between mom and dad, the player, and the coach, is my playing time isn't where I want it to be. If I'm the parent, I want Johnny or Janie to have played more in the last game. And so now there's this friction. And that's where I see parents oftentimes want to jump right in and go do the communicating for their kid. Why didn't Johnny play more? Why didn't Sally play more? And instead of addressing that with their kid and then saying you need to go talk to Coach Kelly and find out what it is that she sees or is trying to teach you, and work it through with your coach. I think that's where I see parents jump in a lot, is in that playing time component. What about you?
Yeah. So actually I have, I've seen it all. I've seen kids come up to me and talk to me without their parents, and I've had parents jump down my throat right away before I even had time to step off the field. But it just depends, at least at the level that I'm coaching, it depends on the club. It depends on the high school, what type of program is being built, or that, the athletic director is allowing you to run. So at New Canaan, that's where I was at for 2 years, and he wanted a competitive program, and the girls were phenomenal. You had so many athletes, and I had a roster of almost 30 girls for those 2 years, which is mind blowing. That's 2.5 teams. That's like 2 teams with plenty of subs. But he wanted it to be competitive, and I thought that was great. I was like, you want to push the program forward. So of course there were a lot of girls not getting playing time, or not getting what they thought that they would get, because in the past everybody played. So having to break that down and be up front, going into preseason, and I sent out a welcome sheet saying playing time is not going to be even this year. Some cuts will be made. We do want to grow this program. I do not want to discourage anyone from playing. If you still want to play on this team, you just have to understand, and we can talk about it, face to face and with your parents, that here's the role that I see you being on this team. And so in that, they knew coming in what was going to happen. If a player started losing playing time, or if a parent wasn't happy about their playing time, I had a rule of like a 24-hour rule saying that you cannot talk to me for at least 24 hours to at least calm the nerves until you can call me or email me, and then we can go on and discuss what had happened. And that was more so for the parents, because like I said, sometimes I've been, jumped on before I even got off the field. Whereas the girls, if they had a problem right after the game, and some have pulled me over aside right after, and it's always heartbreaking to have to tell them, but it's to remind them, like, you have a spot on this team and you have a role, and right now you have to be honest, and I see their character building, but right now they're not my strongest players quite yet. And so going in and then coaching club as well, it's a very competitive club, and if you play for this club, you are told that you may not get playing time. You can be there, but you have to understand that it's super competitive, and kids earn their spots, and that's just how it is. And the parents know that. So that way, that keeps parents at a distance to say, okay, well, this is how the club is, and if my daughter isn't the best, then I have to understand that. So in my experience, I think that with kids, with the playing time and with parents, it's being open up, and it's being open in the very beginning of expectations. And if there are problems, to be able to kind of like have those boundaries of like, okay, I want your child to talk to me first, or if you're very upset about something that had happened, let's give it 24 hours to settle in, and then we can definitely go forward and talk about it, because I always want to talk about it.
I think for parents, these are when there's a playing time question, issue, friction there, whatever the case might be, disappointment. I think, and even earlier, at the earliest ages of 10, 11, 12, parents should be encouraging their player to go talk to the coach first, and let the coach and the player try and work it through. Those are great teaching moments for kids to learn how to go, like you were saying, go and communicate and learn how to work that through, even though it might be hard and uncomfortable for them. If the parents would support their kid to go have that conversation, and then if it doesn't go well, or the kid doesn't understand, then they can go and have a private talk with the coach, like you said, 24 hours or more later, and try and work it through and understand it from the parent side. But I just have seen, I've seen my boys grow significantly by forcing them, no, go talk to coach about that. You need to figure that out with coach. And then, if you have a feeling like I need to, get involved, and I'll be happy to, but forcing the kids to go do it first really forces them to grow up and learn those skills from the earliest age on. And the more used they get to doing that, the easier those conversations get with the coach as you just do it and get used to it.
Exactly. And I mean, my parents were never involved in having to speak to my coaches. I was always the one. My parents had both said, if there's a problem, go talk to them.
Yeah.
Because, my parents actually, didn't even know what field hockey was. So they're like, we don't even know what we're really looking at half the time. So for them, they're like, if there's really an issue, if there's something going on, you have to speak to your coaches about it. And so that taught me from the beginning that, okay, I need to be open with my coaches. And sometimes it's scary. And I mean, it's scary. Even still at the national level, having to talk to my head coach, it can still be scary.
Intimidating, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's always that mystery of like, I don't know how they're going to take what I say. Are they going to take it the wrong way? And, you had those conversations with yourself, it sounds like, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've gotten to the point, like, as I've gotten older, if there were things that I was, frustrated about, or I had questions about, or something that I felt was like really positive that I just wanted to bring up, I would write it down and I would bullet point it. So that way, going into my meeting, I had it in my journal, I had it bullet pointed, and that way I wasn't going to miss one single thing that I knew I wanted to talk to them about.
Yeah, it gave you a guide so you didn't like ramble on, right? I mean, because that's, when we get nervous, we can tend
well, because sometimes you get in, you start talking, and then you never really actually get to what you want to get to.
Right, yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good pointer. Just have a little bullet point, have it written down or on your phone, whatever, so at least you've got a little guide to what you want to say to the coach.
Yeah, and then, being on the coach's side, there's no question or no problem too big or too small. Just bring it up.
Did you ever have a coach who didn't react well to you talking to them? I mean, just because it was their personality or whatever. I mean, did you ever get a negative reaction?
No, I don't think I've ever had a negative reaction. I think everything being kind of lucky in the sense that every coach that I've had is just very honest.
How about you,
Like,
Paul? Did you ever have negative reaction from your coaches if you were honest with them?
Yeah, I've had a few. Yeah, you know,
So how do you, I mean, I'm bringing it up because, I mean, Kelly had the luck, the nice experience of having just, but every once in a while you get a coach who's just got kind of that way, or for whatever reason they're having a bad day and you just say something and they have a negative reaction. You saw as a player, how do you deal with that?
well, he's the coach, whatever you feel and whatever you think should be done, that really doesn't matter. Just he or she is the coach.
yeah.
And you've got to live with it and respect what they're telling you to do and try to do it. And that's your job, as a player. So listen, I got to do whatever I can to get in the lineup, period. Right. So if the coach is telling me I got to do more of this, then I'm going to spend more time practicing that.
Yeah.
And so be it. So yeah, there's been a few times when, I thought I should have been this or I should have been that. And they didn't see it that way. And it is what it is. I just put my head down and worked harder.
That same here. I mean, and you think and you hope, and as a coach myself, like you're explaining them to these things of what they need to do to improve for the benefit of them. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt with all of my coaches, that each coach was giving me the information that I needed to be more successful or to be successful.
Right. There's always two ways you can look at it, right? So you can put your head between your legs and go sit on the table and suck your thumb, or you can go to work.
Exactly.
And get better.
Sounds like life, right?
What's that?
Sounds like life.
Yeah. And again, life lesson, right?
Yeah.
You're not always going to like what your boss has to say, but you got to do the job.
Yep.
So
Kelly, we're excited to have a new partnership with you, and just having you kind of be just a fan, a promoter of Elite Junior Profiles in the field hockey. Like I said, before we started today, our goal is to get our solution, just help as many kids, student athletes have profiles as possible. We don't want to just be in hockey. We're Paul's as one of the founders, heavy in hockey, but we're really excited about opening up field hockey and just exposing more student athletes in the field hockey arena to Elite Junior Profiles and helping them hopefully reach their goal of playing in college. And we're really excited to be partnering with you in that endeavor.
Yeah, I'm excited too, because I mean, there are a lot of kids obviously that are out there that you see, like I said, those stellar stars that stick out and it's very easy to be recruited, but then you've got kids who may want to play D2 and D3 and they just don't know how to or where to go or to get their info out. So I think this is a phenomenal way to get that to those kids as well.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I spoke to a lot of women coaches, right? And they've all told me the same thing, that there's never enough exposure for the girls, whether it's soccer, field hockey, ice hockey, whatever it is. And I'm glad that you came on with us today, Kelly, because being an ambassador for the women sports, so to speak, as we get rolling here, it's very important. I want all girls to know that there is a platform out there that can help them. It's doesn't break the bank, and it gives all the coaches all the information that they need. They just have to take the initiative, and if they're want to take their play to the next level, then they have to be proactive, get a profile, and then get it out there, just like you did, right? Get it out there. And now with what we have, it gives all the coaches a good amount of information. They can get a real good idea of who this player is.
Exactly. I think this is like one heck of a stepping stone for those kids that they don't know what to do or where to start. I think this is a great place to start. I mean,
and just you combine a profile with your advice of what you did in being proactive to get recruited yourself into college. It just what we're excited about is being able to give kind of almost like a dating platform, a place for coaches and scouts in all sports at all levels in the journey towards college to be able to have free access to the platform so that they can get in there and find student athletes that are in their sport that meet the requirements that they're looking for. As you see here in our searching too, I mean, you can actually just, if you've got a school that requires a certain minimum SAT score or a certain minimum GPA, and you're looking for a certain sport, you can come in and filter as a coach, the profiles that meet those minimum requirements. So it's, our goal is to help grow the awareness of coaches. Hey, it's a free platform, and then have an economical way for student athletes to be able to get a profile, whether it's standard or disc enhanced. We're really excited too about our team program, because as coaches like you have a whole team that gets the disc enhanced profile, we can then bring them the team dynamics report, and they can literally see their entire team makeup of all the players and their personality and behavioral styles, which really gives that coach a competitive advantage in terms of how to communicate and really build the team culture they're looking to build, while knowing each individual player on their team and how they're individually different from one another.
Yeah. And I think it's great, especially from the coach's point of view. Like I said, like when coaches are recruiting, I know I've been asked multiple times about a player, and I'm trying to describe their personality, and they're asking me about their parents, and, they're asking me about, how does this kid do? What's their scores like? And I mean, the info is right here.
Yeah.
It's all right here.
Yeah.
Right. We wanted to create a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
And, it makes your job a lot easier, and now you become the coach with the reputation of moving your players to the next level. Okay, so that makes also your recruiting process a lot easier, right? Because you gain that reputation because you have one of the best tools out there.
And it's not the magic bullet. I mean, I think I just want to be clear too. It's a profile. It's an online profile. It's a place to house all the information about you as a student athlete, for you to be able to present that to a coach or a prospective coach or scout that you're looking to go to, for a team, but you still got to put in the work, as we were talking today, really, right? As Kelly was talking, she put in the work, to get to the highest levels of her sport. You still got to have the character. You still got to put the time in with your academics. All of those things come together, but then you can present yourself quickly and easily to coaches and scouts with a nice or well put together profile. You still got to follow it up with the character and put in the time and the effort. Especially once you get that next spot, I'm sure, like you said, even you saw, you've got, it's hard to get to that highest level and stay there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I said, that's why I'm saying this is like a massive stepping stone for people, for coaches and for kids. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to go meet them and still be yourself, but this is great place to find so much information already, instead of having to dig through people and network and say, hey, what do you know about this kid? And what do you know about this? And what do you know? And I mean, you can still do that. Coaches are still going to do that, but this is a great place to start.
What we've heard from a lot of coaches, Paul will tell you, is that coaches are busy, like you got kids, you've got a family, you've got job, you've got, a team that you're paying attention to. That's several full-time jobs. So most coaches are really, really busy, and they don't have the time nor the funds or budget to go and chase, from a recruiting standpoint. So they do their own homework, but boy, like you said, if you're proactive as a student athlete and you put yourself out there in front of a coach and you express that interest, it's hard for the coach to not respond and say, hey, thanks for, reaching out, and you're now on their radar. So that's the biggest thing I want to, encourage our listeners to. If you're a student athlete, be proactive. Take, listen to Coach Kelly, and what she said today is, and be proactive in reaching out to the coaches. Identify those programs where you want to go, the teams that you want to go to, and then put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. And, hopefully you've got a good profile that you can put in that email along with your introduction. And from there, just stay in front of the coaches. We remind them, hey, I'm going to play here. I'm going to play there. Once we get out of this short-term, weirdness that we're in with COVID-19, and things resume some normalcy, you'll be able to say, hey, I'm going to this showcase or this tournament. I'd love to meet you there. Those were really, really good tips, Coach Kelly. I really appreciate you sharing some of those insights with us today.
Of course, no problem. I'm glad I could.
Paul, anything else to wrap up? Coach Kelly, anything else you want to, closing remarks?
No, we're just excited that you came on with us, and looking forward to the future, and good luck to you and the upcoming season. Hopefully that kicks off without a hitch, and looking forward to your continued success.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing me on again. And thank you for finding me. I mean, I'm very pumped to be a part of this and to work with you guys.
Awesome.
and to help bring success to some of these other athletes and help break in.
Thanks a lot, Coach Kelly. Really awesome to meet you today. Get to talk to you. Thanks for sharing just your history, the process that you went through to reach some of the highest levels of success in your sport. And now as you begin the coaching career or even extending the coaching career, just sharing some of the things that you're looking for. Those are really great things that I know our audience will gain some great insights from and will help them in their path. So thanks again for your time today. Best of luck to you, and we look forward to partnering with you going forward.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.